Can you just pop your hand up? What's your favourite story? I'll have to come and pick someone and they'll be like, I don't know, I'll have to think of one off the top of my head. What's your favourite story, Michael?
Narnia's quite good.
Narnia, very good. Couple more, maybe. Anyone, what's your favourite story? You must all have read a story before. Put your hand up if you're prepared to tell me what it is. Paulette. Pilgrim's Progress. How goes that? Oh, we're starting to come now. Anthony? Oh, you stole my bit. But good on you. Anyone else? Becky? Sorry? Pillars of the Earth. Ken Follett. They're massive books that would kill you if it fell on you. Yeah. Yeah.
Joy's written some stories.
Joy has written some stories. Very good. We'll get you a little table out at the back.
The Hiding Place.
Hiding Place, Jeanette. Corrie ten Boom, yeah? Anyone else? Rosemary? Brother Andrew's stories, very good. We can say, Veronica, yeah? Stories are really amazing and powerful. Really amazing and powerful. Whether they're true or not, they can really have an intense impact on you. And this is what someone once said. They said, stories have a transformative power to allow us to see the world in a different way than we do if we just encounter it on our own. Stories are an entry point to understanding a different experience of the world. Let me read you one of my favourite stories. Anthony kind of stole what I was going to say. This is one of my favourite stories, and it's from the Bible. One day, an expert in religious law stood up to test Jesus by asking him this question: Teacher, what should I do to inherit eternal life? Jesus replied, What does the law of Moses say? How do you read it? The man answered, You must love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, all your strength, and all your mind, and love your neighbour as yourself. Right, Jesus said. Do this and you will live. The man wanted to justify his actions, so he asked Jesus, And who is my neighbour? Don't you love the replies that Jesus so often gives? Not what you'd expect. Who is my neighbour? Jesus replied with a story. A Jewish man was travelling from Jerusalem down to Jericho, and he was attacked by bandits. They stripped him of his clothes, beat him up, and left him half dead beside the road. By chance, a priest came along, but when he saw the man lying there, he crossed over to the other side of the road and passed by him. A temple assistant, or in other translations known as a Levite, walked over and looked at him lying there, but he also passed by him on the other side. Then a despised Samaritan came along. Jews and Samaritans didn't get along. We'll tell you more about that another time, maybe. Then a despised Samaritan came along. And when he saw the man, he felt compassion for him. Going over to him, the Samaritan soothed his wounds with olive oil and wine and bandaged them. Then he put the man on his own donkey and took him to an inn, where he took care of him. The next day, he handed the innkeeper 2 silver coins, telling him, Take care of this man. If his bills run higher than this, I'll pay you next time I'm here. Now, which of these 3 would you say was a neighbour to the man who was attacked by the bandits? Jesus asked the man. The man replied, The one who showed him mercy. Then Jesus said, Yes, now go and do the same. What a story. Someone or some famous people have said that is one of the most powerful and beautiful stories the world has ever known. And it's a story that Jesus told as to how we should love our neighbour. Who is our neighbour? Whoever. Everyone and anyone. You're my neighbours, I'm your neighbour. Sorry about that to some of you. But I love to, when I sometimes share a message, I love to start with a story because I think it's powerful. I think it helps draw you into what I want to share with you, what God's put on my heart. I was thinking in the week when I'm going on holiday tomorrow, and this week has been a little bit like, if you remember your school days, your last week before the summer breaks up, it's a little bit like, wow, I'm ready for a break, and I've got lots to do, but I don't feel like I'm in the best place to get it all done. And yet I had to. And yet I was so excited about being able to share something with you this morning. I always love the opportunity to share with all of you. And I was thinking I need to come up with a really brilliant story to grab everyone's attention at the start. And I quickly thought to myself, why not just read a story out of the Bible? It is powerful. The Bible, the message of Jesus, is changing people's lives. Just in the moments I've just been speaking, people's lives are being changed. People all around the world are finding faith for the first time, or rediscovering faith, life in his name, right this moment. It's powerful. And what I want to encourage you to think about this morning is that stories aren't just something that you read out of the Bible or from someone else's life or experience, but your life. I need you guys here to look at me because I want to convince you of this. Well, your life is the experiences you've had with Jesus is something that people need to hear about. And I can hear some of you thinking, oh, well, I haven't really got anything to say, or mine's really boring. I don't believe you. I believe someone needs to hear what you have to say to them. You've lived. You are living. Jesus is changing people's lives right now. If Jesus changed your life, even just the tiniest bit, the smallest answer to prayer, people need to hear because it's powerful. It's time to testify. Your story has power. People need to hear it. So it's time to share it. It's time to testify. The story that I've just read to you, the Good Samaritan, is powerful. What's more, Jesus' life, his actions, the parables, the story he told, the Sermon on the Mount, Matthew 5-7, is so powerful. By the way, just to caveat this, when I say story, there are parts of the Bible, parts of Jesus' teaching where it is just things that he has made up. But everything about Jesus' life is not made up. It's true. True accounts of what really happened. We've been sharing testimonies quite a bit over the last few weeks. Since June, since we got into June, 30 Days to Freedom, we've been sharing testimonies. And I really want that to continue in our services. I just think it's so powerful. It really just stirs me up so much when I hear people talking about, you won't believe what Jesus has done in my life. You won't believe what he's set me free from. You won't believe how he's helped me to learn to trust him. That's my story this year. I feel like, compared to where I was 6 months ago, I trust God to a far greater degree. Not because of what I've done, really, but because I've just said, Lord, I need to know more of you. I just need to know more of you. We live in a world where people, I was reading something the week, I think it was something that Philip Yancey said. He said, people expect the more I put in, the more I'll get out. And that's very true. But in our relationship with God, in terms of the way that God sees us, see, that's very much based around the notion of karma. If you're a good person, you'll get rewarded well. Grace breaks all the rules. I can't tell you how many times in this last few years since I've been leading in church and people have said things like, how can that person call themselves a Christian? Or how can you allow someone like that in your church? And because grace breaks all the rules. Oh, wow, you sounded like you enjoyed that. Grace breaks all the rules. That was better than what I was expecting. God, I wouldn't be stood here if it wasn't for God's grace. Only by his grace have we been saved. Let's get it into our heads. Karma isn't the way that things go, it's grace. God's grace is so beautiful. What is God's grace? It's God giving us something we don't deserve. His mercy is when he doesn't give us something we do deserve. Thank you for encouraging me there, church. I hope you online were suitably encouraged as well. When you shouted back there, that really blessed me. Yes, come on, God's grace. Wonderful. It's wonderful. I really love us to continue testimonies and services, but do you know what it's time to do now? It's time to do it outside. It's a bit scary, but it's time to do it outside of a church service, outside of people who are just Christians and begin to share. And I'm going to give you some ideas as to how you might be able to start doing that if you're not already. Or if you are, maybe it will give you one or two different ideas. People on your street, your family, your workplace, a place where you volunteer. It might be the only opportunity that they have to encounter Jesus is if you're bold enough to stand up and share something of who Jesus is with them. And you can quote Dot Cotton style out of the Bible if you like. And there's a place for that, for sure. But when you actually just begin to share of your experiences, the things that God's done in your life, my wife always says, you can't argue with experience. You can't argue with someone's experience. You can say, I don't agree or I don't like it, but when someone has lived through something and they've experienced it that way, they can't say it's not, you've lived it. You can't, in a way, you can't say it's not true. People are entitled to their opinion over something. You might think you don't have a lot to share, and let me tell you, you have an awful lot to share. An awful lot to share, an awful lot of things that people need to know. Because if you're a Christian this morning, or if you're about to become one, you have been or will be about to be saved from an eternity without Jesus. And that is immense. That is immense. Could you just pass me that water, Bill? Is that okay? Thank you. You might think it's not very newsworthy, but Heaven's Newswire, every single time someone is saved, goes into overdrive, and there is a party, an almighty party. And let me tell you, there's an ongoing party in heaven all the time, because just the time I've been talking to you, people around this world will have made a decision to put their faith in Jesus. Just because we're not seeing great results in our own nation at the minute, that will change. It's changing already. We're just on a bit of a funny, annoying cycle. I really believe one of the things that we need to do, I believe it's a thing over my generation, we need to stand firm on the truth of God to pass it on to the next generation, a generation not yet unborn. There is so much trouble and confusion in our world at the minute, and the answer was Jesus. It is Jesus, and it will remain Jesus. Will remain. I do apologise, I'm suddenly feeling a little bit hot under the collar, but I'm going to press on. Theory is good and helpful, but stories, especially real ones, can be life-changing, and Jesus told a lot of them. He used to love to tell stories, to speak truth and direction and life and revelation and destiny and purpose into the lives of ordinary people. Even more so than when we say anything, when we open up our mouths and say, guess what Jesus has done for me? It can change someone's destiny. You might not see it, but just dare to plant the seed. Dare to plant the seed. In a world where I think in reality we live in a world of right and wrong, but truth is so unendingly contested, experience can trump everything. So I want to encourage you this morning to begin using that to your advantage. When you've lived through something, it gives you permission to speak into people's lives and situations of others. When you've lived through something, it's harder when you haven't. I've got a friend called Barry Woodward, who some of you might have heard of. He's a travelling evangelist. He lives up in the northwest of England. He's been to this church a number of times. And the reason his prison ministry is so effective, the reason I believe, apart from the fact that God's anointed him and put him there, but the reason that his story resonates with so many people who are currently in prison is he was once on the other side of the bars. He's served loads of jailbird time. He's been in prison countless times. And I could walk into a prison and start telling people about it, but his what he's lived through will mean so much more because he knows what it's like every day to be in prison. Lots of different prisons. Ultimately, I don't know that, and I hope I never find out, but he does. He does. It gives him a permission to speak into it. And when you've lived through something, when you've got experience of something, it gives you a permission to speak into a situation. You don't even need to ask for it. You can just begin to share it. So I can look at someone like Claire and I can say, and she could share about what it was like being a person of faith in the classroom. I can look at Bill T and I can say, Bill, you did a job where there were a lot of really tough guys. How did you stand firm in that environment? How did you stand firm for God when people wanted to take the mickey out of you? And he can tell me. You see where I'm going with that, don't you? Let me just again bust that myth that we must not keep the story of what Jesus has done in our lives to ourselves. There is this. People won't actually underestimate your story like they think you will. But please, 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 let's bust that myth. Can we do that together? That there is this lie at the moment doing the rounds, particularly among sort of some famous Christians, that I'll keep my faith to myself. It's a private matter. It's a private matter. I don't see anything of that in Scripture. I see very much the opposite, that we're supposed to live it, breathe it, let it inform who we are. And I'm not talking about battering people over the head with the Bible this morning. I'm talking about being clever, threading in your story. So I hope that what I just share over the next few minutes might just stir up that faith and that desire for you to share something of your story. You're more capable of it than you think you are. You're more capable than you think you are. A lot more capable. And you've got a story to share. How can you tell your story? Well, simply the power is in your hands. When Jesus has done something in your life, you can tell people. What you don't have to do, not there isn't a place for this, but you don't have to testify. You don't have to share your entire story every time. You don't need to share your entire story. What you can just share is just like a headline. I'll show you in a minute how you might be able to do that. It's in your hands, really. The gospel of Jesus Christ is so unbelievably malleable, as in you can, without changing it, without changing the truth, you can fit it into any culture, any society, any person's life, and it makes sense. Why? Because it's true and because it speaks right into the hearts of humans. That's one of the reasons that the gospel is still changing people's lives today. Just remember, here's a good caveat, and you'll see this in 1 Peter. Just make sure you do so with gentleness, respect. Don't be all like triumphalists, like, you're an idiot, you don't, you're not a person of faith. Just be humble, be loving, and please remember this, and I've learned this kind of at a cost, but I'm glad I learned the lesson. Be more concerned with winning the person's heart than by being right. Be more concerned at winning. No one, I don't think, ever came into the kingdom because they were persuaded up here. There is that, but I think it's got to be the heart. It's got to be the heart. We did a story in 2019 called, we did a series in 2019 called Telling Your Story, and there were some really good practical examples in that. It was before we used to video record anything, but so if you go onto our website, if you look on the podcast app and you look it up, then you'll be able, on Android or Apple, then you'll be able to find that. Perhaps a good thing for you to do, perhaps a piece of homework I can leave with you. And when I get back from my holiday, I'll see who's brought their homework in on time. How about this week, you just go away and you take a few minutes and you pray and you think back through your life. You might have been a Christian for many years, it might be a more recent thing, but think, what are some of the key things that God has done in my life? What are some of the times when I've prayed about something and I could share that with someone? What might have healed me from? I'll give you some examples. So, a few years ago, I was diagnosed with tinnitus. I prayed and God set me free from it. I prayed. I was prayed for and I prayed and God, I don't have it anymore. Thank you so much. Oh, I've got 2 things of water now. That's brilliant. Thanks, Lissa. I can think, do you know what? One of the things that God did for me years ago now, when I was already a Christian, but I wasn't, you might not have thought so if you'd have been in my head, if you'd have heard some of the things I've said and done. But do you know what? When I just surrendered to God, he gave me my dignity back. He made me, I felt comfortable in my own skin for the first time in about how many years, I don't know. I felt like I didn't need to keep trying anymore. Oh, it's so good. God is so good. When you begin to get these little things, you can begin to say, now, imagine a scenario, how could I maybe share this? People that you know, someone you might just come across, how could I share this with someone? And then pray and say, Lord, I want to pray for opportunities. I want to pray for a chance to share this with someone, maybe even this very day. I pray you'll give me a chance, and I pray you'll give me the boldness and the bravery not to chicken out, but to step out and just to say something. And it can be something really simple as, hey, yeah, I was in that situation once, yeah. And do you know what? Actually, I prayed about it, and this happened. Or someone was sick, and yeah, and people will start to ask questions. It will make them think, and make them think, that's interesting, even if they, on the face of it, look really skeptical. I'll give you a demonstration of this in a minute. God is not looking for you to be polished, to be perfect. He's just looking for you to be real. You can get better at sharing your story, no doubt about it. But here quickly are eight things. You might just want to write these down. Number 1, pray for people who are not yet believers or followers of Jesus. Secondly, make a regular assessment of your friendships, people that you see, people that you know. Make a regular assessment with them and think, I know this, maybe I know this person fairly well. How can I get my faith in something that God's done? Number 3, look for spiritual thirst. You know people who are like, particularly if people are looking for some kind of answers in the wrong places, particularly they might be looking to the occult. They might be going to like tarot card nights, which are really bad, by the way, and you should avoid them like the plague. Worse than the plague. They'll destroy you. The occult will absolutely rip you to pieces. So please don't go to those sorts of evenings and mess about with Ouija boards and all sorts of things like that. You're messing with stuff you don't want to know anything about, trust me. But people who are maybe thinking, I want something more, look for spiritual thirst. Keep up regular ongoing devotional time. Don't skip it. Just make sure, do you know what I'm doing tomorrow? I'm making sure when I pack my suitcase, Kelly doesn't know, by the way, she thinks I've finished packing, she's going to have a shot later. Oh, I've just realised I said that in public. Whoops. Please pray for me. I'm packing my Bible. I've got it on my phone, but I'll pack a paper copy. I remember Terry Virgo. Has anyone ever heard of Terry Virgo? Brilliant Bible teacher. He once said, round about one summer a few years ago, he said, the one thing don't take holiday from your relationship with Jesus. Because the Bible is the source of all life. Prayer is the way that will always. I read the Bible, I can't get tired reading the Bible. It's impossible. Why? Because it's alive. And it's alive because Jesus is alive. Don't forget to pack your Bible. So regular ongoing devotional time. Number 5, intentionally build relationships. Be kind. Get interested in people. Don't just, do you know what really saps my energy is when I'm with people and they never ask how I am? I'm like, because it means I'm constantly giving out. I have to do a lot of that in my job anyway, but It means I'm constantly giving out. Ask how other people are. Take an interest. Who are their family? Who are their friends? What's their job? What are their hobbies? How can you get something in? Number 6, debrief every evangelistic conversation you have. So even just think to yourself, how did God point that person out to me? How did I notice that person? What's maybe God already doing? Things like that. Number 7, make space in your life for impromptu conversations. So in Acts 8, when Philip was kind of minding his own business, he had a margin for an impromptu conversation with the Ethiopian eunuch. In Acts 3, Peter and John had the margin in their life when they were just walking along to Gate Beautiful, or Gate Bootiful as Bill calls it. They had a margin, a moment. Beautiful. Bernard Matthews used to say that. They had a margin, a moment. He said, I need something. And they said, we haven't got any money, but what I have I give to you. In the name of Jesus Christ, get up and walk. And he got up and walked. Have a margin in your life for spontaneous conversations. And number 8, understand your own story. And I'd like to give you a little bit of a demonstration of this. And I've asked a willing victim to come forward, and we're going to give you. Now, this might go horribly wrong. Yeah, you can do, yeah. This might go horribly wrong, but please bear with us as we go into acting mode.
See some Oscar-worthy acting here.
You don't know what's going to happen yet, so you need to be quiet. Okay. So, I don't know who this person is, so I don't know who this person is, so...
My name is non-believer Nigel.
Okay, so we'll call him Nigel. He doesn't know who I am. Okay, you can call me Malcolm.
Malcolm.
Okay, we've been friends a few years now, Nigel, Malcolm. So let's go into acting mode. Hey,
Hey, Malcolm,
forgot
you
your
right?
name. Hey, no, it's good to see you. How are you doing? You well?
You know how it is. Just things have been a bit rough, if I'm honest. You know.
Oh, really? I'm sorry to hear that.
You know, work sucks, to be honest. Just not really happy at the moment, and yeah, things have been better for sure.
What's wrong? What's been wrong? Just
Boss is an absolute muppet, and just not very happy, not moving forward. I don't. When you just don't feel great, like looking at my life, it's just not really moving anywhere. Just not feeling very happy.
Do you feel a bit like stuck and a bit frustrated?
Yeah, to be honest, it's.
I'm sorry to hear that. But do you know what? I know I'm a little bit older than you, and I've had a situation a few years ago. I was in such a similar situation. And what do you know what I did? I went to a few friends because I'm a Christian. I know you're not.
All right, okay.
The purposes of this is not. I'm not calling it salvation into question. What I did was I had a chat with a few friends from the church I go to, and I just said, guys, I'm really stuck at the minute. Can I have some advice, but can you pray for me as well? Oh. And I don't know if you believe in any of this, but we prayed about it, and they gave me some advice because, they're wise people. And what I just found over quite a short space of time as things just began to improve, and I've begun to get some new ideas. But do you know what? The amazing thing was when I prayed about it, I put it into God's hands, and it's like I just felt his peace come all over me. It was amazing.
Yeah. I mean,
when you try it.
I've never considered myself a Christian. I don't really believe in God, but it's for acting purposes only.
Yeah, we didn't want to know.
But I have to say, I'm open to it. I suppose I could give it a try. Yeah.
Well, I'd be really happy to either pray with you now, or I could just go away and pray. But why don't we meet up again? Why don't we?
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd like to kind of hear more about that.
Okay.
Awesome. Cool.
It can be as easy as that.
And the Oscar goes to.
Can someone pray the sinner's prayer with John, please? John, I'm really worried about you. It can be just, I know that probably looks a bit contrived and a bit silly, particularly on my part, but it can be as simple as that. Just one little thing, one little part of your story. You don't need to give them the whole thing. You don't need to read the whole Bible over them. Maybe this can be an encouragement to you. Becky, would you be able to come back and just play a few chords? Maybe this will be an encouragement to you, friends, as we close, before I hand back to Bill T. One of my great friends, spiritual fathers, Chris Bowater, recently shared this on social media. I don't think it was his work. I think he was quoting someone, but I forget who. But he said this, and you might feel a bit discouraged right now, think, oh, I can't do that. I can't share my faith. But maybe this will help you a little bit. It says, the enemy wants you to think that you have no song to write, no story to tell, no painting to paint. He wants to quiet you. He wants to silence you. So sing. Let the word by which the Creator made you fill your imagination, guide you, lead you from note to note, until a melody is strung together like a glimmering constellation in the clear sky. How good is that? Love the Lord your God and love your neighbour too, just like I was reading at the start. By making worlds and works of beauty that blanket the earth like flowers. Let your homesickness for heaven keep you always from spiritual slumber. Remember that it is in the fellowship of the saints, the friends and family, that your gift will grow best and will find its best expression. And until the kingdom comes in its fullness, bend your will to the joyful, tearful telling of its coming. Write about that. Write about that. Tell people about that and never stop. I want to close by just reminding you, you don't have to be perfect, but God's just asking you to make a start. He's just asking for your heart. He's asking you, I think he's saying it's time to testify. Could this be the moment? Could this be the moment? Could God be using his people to get his message of hope, his message of the fact that we're not alone, out there to people, to see people's lives change? And do you know what the great thing is? You don't need to be concerned by the results. That's not your job. Your job is just to be the messenger. When I got my first ever job when I was 16, it was a summer job. It was not my favourite job I've ever done. My favourite job I ever did was when I was 14 and did a paper round. I absolutely loved it. Wish I could get paid good money to do that. But my first job where I got paid a bit more than that was I did telesales for a double glazing company. I couldn't get another job. And every morning, I used to think I'd hate to be one of the foot canvassers who'd go out and walk the streets and just knock on people's doors. Because there was a serious level of pressure on them. I recognised that maybe that I just wasn't the character for something like that, and they were. And they would always kind of brag and go on about, yeah, I made this much money, I got this thing and that thing and the other thing. And there were others who were like, I need a sale really soon, otherwise I'm in trouble, or my job's in trouble. Do you know what Jesus says to us this morning? Share your faith, share your story, and whatever the response is from someone does not depend on you. Isn't that brilliant? What a great boss! He's saying, just share it, leave the rest up to me. Like it says 1 Corinthians 3, one plants, so plant a seed, another waters, and God will let it grow. God will make it grow. God will provide the increase. Let him do that bit of his job for you. He really told me off a few years ago, and he said, stop trying to make things grow. Only I can do that. It's physically impossible. Stop wasting your energy on something you can't even do. Because I believe, the last thing I want to say is that I really believe that all of us are right to seek a more Jesus-centered life. But think about this. Jesus, when he encountered people, when he shared with people, when he taught to people and spoke with people, he generally did it in the marketplaces, the highways and the byways, not at Pentecostal altar calls. As good as they are not the be-all and end-all. And if you think about the Road to Emmaus experience, someone else said that's the most beautiful story in the world. I think a lot of Jesus' stories are some of the most beautiful ever. But the Road to Emmaus experience was no less powerful because it didn't take place in the four walls of the temple. Could it be that it was even more powerful that it took place just by the side of the road? The Saviour of the world, they didn't even recognize who he was. And then gradually their eyes were opened and they realized they were in front of him. Could you imagine that? I wonder whether some of the Apostle Paul's theology, right at the start of Acts, was blown to pieces. I'm just guessing this. I'll probably get rebuked by a Bible teacher in a minute, but I'm just guessing this. I wonder if some of his theology was blown to bits or might have been disrupted somewhat on that road to Damascus, because he might have expected God to meet him in the temple, not by the side of the road. I believe, in fact, I speak this into the future. I believe in the future we're going to see more people encounter Jesus outside of church services than we will in them. Because do you know what? And now, don't hear what I'm not saying. I'm not saying that church isn't important. I'm not saying we shouldn't gather. We've got to, we need to. It's our life source. There are still so many Christians all across this world who haven't come back into fellowship, proper fellowship after COVID. Maybe you could go to them and say, come on, get back on the horse. Come on, it's not like you think it might be. We need you back. We're missing you. We're missing your gifts, what you have to give, as well as what you'll experience. The body's missing you. But I really believe that in the future, church is going to look a bit different in the future, because people aren't going to come to us. We're going to have to go to them. And I believe we should be excited by that. We just need to embrace that. And one of the ways you can do that is know really crystal clear what God's done in your life so you can share it with them. I think it's how God is increasingly moving, is that he's mobilizing the church. And he's saying, don't just shut yourselves up in the four walls, but go. Kingdom come, church, go. By the way, he didn't say church go and never come back. He said, church go, come back, be together, but then go into your sphere of influence. Whatever your life is, might be glamorous, might not be so much, but it's time for you to testify. It's time for you to share. And I believe that's how God's increasingly moving. It's no less important, because it's not like it didn't happen in yesteryear. It's what God is doing now. It's a new thing. It's an exciting thing. Your story, what you've lived through, you all listening, your story, what you've lived through, what Jesus has done in your life, could be the thing that will change someone's eternal destiny. What an awesome responsibility just to share the message and not to be concerned with the result. Someone needs to hear your story. Time to testify.